Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance. My name is Chaz Andres, and as always, we're going to get started this week with the news. The biggest story of this week, of course, is that Modern Horizons is finally here. The set has been live on Magic Online for the past couple of days, and we're finally starting to get a sense of how the prices are shaping up. The first thing to know is that Modern Horizons packs have a terrible expected value on Magic Online right now. A complete set of Modern Horizons is only worth about 180 tickets on Magic Online, compared to almost $600 in paper Magic. And you cannot redeem Modern Horizons, so the prices for Modern Horizons cards on MTGO are almost completely divorced from Modern Horizons prices in paper. Combine that with the fact that packs and drafts are just very expensive on Magic Online, and it doesn't make sense to engage with the set in any way on MTGO other than just buying the singles you need. And right now, the most expensive cards in Modern Horizons are continuing to drop. All new sets end up losing value for the first week or two after their release, and Modern Horizons is no exception. The most expensive, most hyped up cards like Wrenn and 6 and Force of Negation are all still losing value, and I wouldn't even think about starting to pick those up for at least another week. That said, there are actually a lot of cards in Modern Horizons that are worth picking up now. For example, the 5 Horizon lands appear to have bottomed out a couple of days ago and are on the upswing again. You're going to want these in your collection long term, you should pick them up now. The same is actually true for almost all of the intriguing rares in the set that are less than 5 tickets in the moment. Cards like Force of Vigor, Collector Oof, Unsettled Mariner, these are good cards that are going to be necessary in Modern going forward. A lot of them appear to have hit bottom a couple of days ago, either Friday night or Saturday morning, and have been slowly trending upwards since. See, the fact that Modern Horizons packs have a pretty lousy EV right now is not really lost on anybody. It's not a mystery, and that means that a lot of people are just not buying packs of this set on Magic Online, which makes sense, but it also means that the available supply for a lot of these cards is going to be pretty low in the future. There's going to be a lot of cards that are 2 to 3 tickets right now. They're going to be 20 to 30 tickets a year from now. Modern is still the format that drives value on Magic Online, and you're going to need cards from Modern Horizons in order to play that format going forward. So I would definitely look at picking up some of these cheap relevant rares right now, just holding on to them for a long time. Let's move on to Gaining Ground, where in Standard for the second straight week, it was Finale of Promise gaining 7 tickets from 15 up to 22. Now, in last week's video, I predicted that this card was still on the rise and it might end the week somewhere near the 20 ticket mark, but it looks like I underestimated its potential. Finale of Promise is now worth more than twice as much as any other card in War of the Spark. Now, if you've been paying close attention to the markets recently, you'll note that Finale of Promise is doing pretty much the same thing that Kaya was doing back in April and May, where the mythic rare in the set with the highest amount of modern play has been going for, 3 times as much on MTGO as in paper Magic, despite the fact that a lot of other cards in the set are a lot cheaper online than in paper. Now, if we assume that Finale of Promise follows the Kaya curve, it's probably pretty close to peaking and it may start to drop a bit. Just don't expect it to drop a ton, and don't be surprised if it actually ends up continuing to gain value. Remember the fact that set redemption economics are weird. This card's price does not have to really translate a lot into play in order to stay high, so feel free to sell into the hype if you want, but don't expect it to crash at any point soon. Now, over in Modern, the card that gained the most value this week was Leyline of the Void, which gained about 8 tickets from 13 up to 21. And the reasoning behind this is actually fairly simple and straightforward. WotC announced this week that the London Mulligan was going to be the new rule of the land going forward. It's going to be the Mulligan across all formats, and that's very good for cards like Leyline of the Void. The Mulligan just makes it a lot more powerful. Now, when the London Mulligan was first announced, Leyline actually jumped up to the 25 ticket mark, but its price started to erode since then, and actually it was below the 10 ticket mark about a week and a half ago. Now, while Leyline of the Void is probably not going to be below 10 again, I don't think this price is going to the moon either. The card has been tested extensively with the London Mulligan, and while it's very good, it's not format changing. Also, these price spikes on MTGO don't seem to last all that long these days, so definitely monitor this one over the next couple of weeks, but if it ends up anywhere above the 25 ticket mark again, I'd feel pretty safe selling into the hype. Let's move on now to our biggest loser, where in Standard it was Teferi Time Raveler, dropping about 6 tickets from 17 down to 11. And I can already hear the angry comments being typed. I mean, hey, wasn't this one of the cards that I recommended that you buy last week? Yeah, it was. I mean, its price chart was really looking good, its underlying metrics were excellent, it sees play in a lot of formats, so what happened? Now, I think part of what's going on here is that people are selling their copies of Teferi and other expensive staples in order to buy into Modern Horizons, which is just a thing that happens every time a new set comes out. I think another part of it is that we're still having problems figuring out how to value Standard cards in a post-arena world. I mean, Finale of Promise is worth twice as much as Teferi, despite the fact that it sees a lot less play across all formats, and that's still very weird to me despite all the stuff with Set Redemption. So yeah, I still like Teferi a lot long term. I'm probably going to try and buy a bunch of these while the price is still low, but its chart is still pointed down, so I'm going to hold off until this particular lull is over before I make any decisions about that. Let's move back over to Modern, where the biggest loser of the week was Mycosynth Lattice yet again, losing 12 more tickets from 36 all the way down to 24. And at this point, all I can really say is, I want to get off of Mycosynth Lattice's wild ride. I mean, this is a card that was less than a ticket back in April, peaked at 55 back in May, and has lost half its value again over the past 2 weeks. So when's this card gonna stop dropping? I don't know. I mean, the price chart is still pointing straight at the floor, so I'm certainly not going to touch this right now. That said, this crater has not been replicated in Paper Magic. The Paper Magic price for Mycosynth Lattice has just stayed stable in the $60+ range, so I don't think this card is going to crash entirely. If I had to guess, I'd say it'd end up somewhere in the 20 ticket range, but honestly, I'm just gonna wait this one out and see where it ends up myself. Now, the sneak of the week this week isn't so much a slow burn as another Modern spike that I wanted to make sure I covered. It's Gravecrawler, a card that jumped from about half a ticket to about 8 tickets in less than a day last week. The reason for this, of course, is that Hogak Arisen Necropolis has become the cool new engine in Modern thanks to Modern Horizons, and a lot of the other cards in that deck are spiking. Cards like Altar of Dementia and Vengevine and Bridge from Below all saw some pretty absurd movement this week as well, so definitely check your collection for copies of those cards if you're interested in either, building the deck or selling into the spike. As always, we're going to end the week by taking a look at the MTGO Trader sales data over the past 7 days, and this gives us a great idea about which cards are selling the best right now, regardless of price increases or decreases. In terms of overall sales by price, Teferi Time Raveler had another very strong week this week, despite the drop in value. It was the number 2 best-selling card of the week by this metric, next to a bunch of other Modern staples like Surgical Extraction and Jace the Mind Sculptor. The best Modern Horizon cards by this metric? Well, that would be Force of Negation. That was the 4th best-selling card of the week overall by price, and, while I still strongly suspect that this card has a lot of value left to give, and I wouldn't buy in yet, I don't think it's bottomed out, this real-world demand is very much worth noting here. Looking at overall sales by volume, this list was dominated by a couple of relative newcomers this week in the snow-covered lands. The Sultai colors, Island, Swamp, and Forest dominated the list, with the Boros colors, Plains, and Mountain a little bit further down. As with all the other cheap Modern Horizon cards this week, the prices for these snow-covered basics appear to have bottomed out a couple of days ago and are slowly on the rise again. If you've been meaning to have any of these in your collection, I'd pick them up sooner rather than later. And that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Chaz Andres, and I will see you again next Monday morning for another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance.